Welcome to Easy Mathematics and a new video, law of sine and cosine and the logical relationship. What is it about? Before we start, I give an overview what we want to do. First, I want to talk about what we want to do. Then we recall some important properties, which I will not prove in this video, I just give them. Then we start the main part, and before I show the results, I give a summary what we have done, and then we will see what is the relationship between the law of sine and law of cosine. So what is it about? We want a logical relationship between the law of sine and the law of cosine, and these two statements I call S and C. And what we want in particular is something like, does the law of cosine follow from the law of sine, or does the law of sine follow from the law of cosine, or are they even equivalent? Or to say it in other words, can we prove the law of sine by law of cosine and the other way around? And before we start, I want to recall a couple of important properties. The first, the definition of sine and cosine. If we have a right triangle with hypotenuse C and we cut it A and B, and we consider an angle alpha at the edge A, at the corner A. Then we have sine of alpha is an opposite over hypotenuse, and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And for completeness, I wrote down also the tangent, but we will not use it. Okay. And the second law of sine. The ratio between the sine of angles over the opposite side, they are equal, and the law of cosine is a generalization of the Pythagorean theorem. For example, a squared is b squared plus c squared minus 2bc, and the cosine of alpha. The two others. The one we also need is a symmetry property for the cosine. The cosine x is minus cosine 180 degree minus x. Now we start by considering a linear combination of side A in terms of B and C, and it's sometimes called the projection theorem. Please make sure that you understand the first line. A is b times cosine gamma plus c times cosine beta. This is valid in any triangle. This is our start, okay? So please make sure you understand the first line. Alright, I leave that as an exercise for you. And the first step, what we do is we square both sides, and we get a squared is b times cosine gamma plus c times cosine beta quantity squared. Then we make use of the binomial theorem, and then we get a squared is b squared cosine squared gamma plus c squared cosine squared beta plus 2 times b times c times cosine beta times cosine gamma. Alright. Now we use in the first two summations the trigonometric Pythagorean theorem. So for cosine squared we write 1 minus sine squared, okay, and we use this like I said in the first two terms. Then we get this line, b squared times 1 minus sine squared plus c squared times 1 minus sine squared plus 2 times b times c times cosine beta times cosine gamma. Okay. Then we rearrange a little bit. We get following. Alright. And here, the first part of this equation looks, familiar to the law of cosine, but not exactly. We add a 0 to make this the law of cosine. That's why we add a 0, and how we add it. We add minus 2 times b times c times sine beta sine gamma, and we add it at the end, 2 plus 2 times b times c times sine beta sine gamma. Alright? Why we do that, you will understand now. Here in the middle, factor 2 times b times c out, and we get cosine beta cosine gamma minus sine beta sine gamma. And the last three terms, this is a binomial term, so make sure you get this. It's b times sine gamma minus c times sine beta quantity squared. Okay. Now, in the square brackets, we make use of the additional formula for cosine. We get 2 times b times c times cosine beta plus gamma. And now, because we are working in a triangle, we have alpha plus beta plus gamma equals 180 degrees, and therefore beta plus gamma is 180 minus alpha. And the last step is we make use of the symmetry property. Cosine 180 degrees minus alpha is minus cosine alpha. Alright? And minus this square. Alright? This is all we need. And now we make a summary. We started with the projection law of triangles. A equals b times cosine gamma plus c times cosine beta. And we played around with this equation to get a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times cosine alpha minus b times sine gamma minus c times sine beta quantity squared. Alright? And now, what can we see by this result? So first, in the first part, this is exactly the law of cosine. Alright? So if the law of cosine is true, then it follows that this square is 0. In other words, b times sine gamma minus c times sine beta is 0. And this is exactly the law of sine. And it's up to you to check this. Now this is exactly the law of sine. So what we have here is the law of cosine implies the law of sine. And now, as you can guess it, the other way around is the same. If the law of sine is true, then b square is 0, and we are left with the law of cosine. And this is a very beautiful result in my opinion. Law of sine and law of cosine, they are equivalent, and this is what the video is about. Thanks for watching, see you next time.